Protesters gather in Denver as America reacts to the decision not to charge any officers for the killing of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. We'll look at how police use no-knock raids here. We explore a voting desert where it's difficult for Coloradans to drop off their ballots. Look at Colorado's mountaintops. They are mighty white even when there's no snow. A Coloradan tells us why it's so significant that he will summit each one. And here's a first for you. Viewer feedback at the beginning of the show. Don in Windsor writes, I'm looking forward to tonight's micro-giving project. When so many things seem just plain awful, the opportunity to help someone, even in a small way, is so empowering. You bet it is. Let's go. This is Next. There are Coloradans gathering as we speak who want to send a message tonight. It is a message that we have heard, but America has yet to fully process or act upon. The message that innocent black people should not be killed by police officers. Breonna Taylor is the latest name they speak tonight. A decision out of Louisville, Kentucky today not to charge any officers for her death for the shooting in her apartment. It's led to protests across America. The lone grand jury indictment in the case was not for the killing of Breonna Taylor. Detective Brett Hangson was charged with what's called wanton endangerment for firing into a neighboring apartment. He has already lost his job. The other two officers involved are still on the force. Protesters are gathering in Denver at the Colorado State Capitol tonight. This event's organized by some of the same community leaders who put together peaceful protest marches for racial justice over the past few months, and speakers are expected to address that crowd in about 30 to 45 minutes. The officers who killed Breonna Taylor had what was called a no-knock warrant, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Officers get permission from a judge to enter a home without first knocking or announcing their presence. This is designed to keep officers safe, but it can have tragic results when there's confusion involved. There have been calls across the country to ban no-knock warrants. We want to know how often they're used here. Denver police would not answer our question about that, did not get back to us. Aurora police say they have done 5 in the last 3 years. Now, they can only be used in certain circumstances, again, with the judge's approval, based on what the person is wanted for, whether they're believed to be violent, whether there might be evidence destroyed if police announce their presence.
The detectives have to go through and do a good scouting report, know who they're trying to find, know what the actual crime is going to be that they're apprehending the person for, then have to write what's called a warrant up, and then actually take that warrant to the judge, say, hey, judge, this is what I believe to be true. This is what I think I'm looking for. This is what I want to find inside the residence. And this is how we want to go about arresting this person or apprehending this person.
That was Kevin Smith, former SWAT officer and current criminal justice professor at MSU Denver. We asked him whether the situation in Louisville, Kentucky, and criticism of no-knock warrants more broadly is changing officer behavior. Smith said the possibility of getting in trouble does hang over officers' heads and might cause them to act differently in the field. Colorado, of course, just this year opened up officers to personal liability for their conduct. The man who drove a Jeep through a crowd of protesters who've taken over I-225 in Aurora this summer will not face any charges. District Attorney said today that the driver did what anybody else would do in a similar situation. DA George Brockler says he does not believe that the driver wanted to hurt protesters.
The standard for filing charges for prosecution, ethically, is that I have to have a good faith basis to believe that a specific crime, and that specific crime has to be the one charged, was committed by the specific defendant. Even if I have a good faith basis to believe those things, I have to have a reasonable likelihood of success at trial.
It should be noted that Samuel Young, person who was in that crowd, fired several gunshots at the Jeep as it was driving. 2 people were hit by the gunfire. Young's charged with 4 counts of attempted homicide and 2 counts of assault. With Colorado's more than 370 ballot drop boxes and about 350 places to vote in person, you would not think that we would have voting deserts, areas where voting in person or dropping off your ballot is not possible. And yet there's a pocket of Park County that politics guy Marshall Zellinger found to be pretty dry for voting purposes.
Check out our 9 News interactive voting location map. The walkie guy indicates where you can vote in person. The waving hand icons are where you can hand someone your ballot in person. And the ballot box icons are 24-hour drop boxes. They're everywhere. Almost. Zoom into Park County. 3 in-person voting centers and 3 drop boxes. 1 of each in Fairplay, 2 of each in Bailey. None in the far southeast corner of the county near Lake George.
There's not a lot in Lake George. You could pretty much drive through it and not know you've been there.
Mary Roloff recently moved to the blink and you'll miss it town from Centennial, the city where you can blink for 30 minutes and you're still in it.
There were drop boxes all over the place.
4 near where she used to live, 3 within 10 minutes. Where she lives now requires the scenic route to find a drop box.
An hour and 15 to an hour and a half drive.
Even if she lived right near the Lake George sign, it's a minimum 45-minute drive to the closest drop box in Fairplay. But it's not like she has to make the drive. She can put it in the same mailbox her ballot arrived in the first place.
I generally prefer drop box. The mail kind of scares me right now, and I would really like to put it in a drop box.
The Park County Clerk and Recorder has not done anything wrong. In fact, the county is providing above and beyond what's required. Based on the election plan Park County sent to the Secretary of State's office in July, there are 13,000 active voters in the county. For counties with 15,000 or fewer voters, state law only requires 1 drop box. Park County has 3. I spoke with the clerk and recorder by phone. She tells me, as of today, there are 614 active voters in the Lake George area. But if there's a viable plan for next year, she'll look at adding a drop box. The county clerk also pointed out that if you live in the southern part of the county, you have to get to Fairplay for motor vehicle transactions, birth and death certificates, marriage licenses. But again, she's open to the idea of a southern drop box if it can be secure and in a safe spot.
It seems, Marshall, that there's a heightened interest in voting security this year, at least in terms of what we hear from voters. Maybe it's baseless attacks on election security. I don't know. But do you hear more of that, too?
Yeah, I mean, for 6 years we've been doing it this way, 7 years now, and it's this year that we've gone in-depth doing the story, showing how the ballots are collected at the drop box, and going through the process of how there's 2 people from opposing parties. We've never done in-depth stories like that before, as much as we have this year so far.
All right, Marshall, thank you so much. Let's take a moment to look at some of the latest COVID-19 data in our state. There are 158 people currently hospitalized. That is the highest hospitalization number we've seen since mid-August. 7-day average is now up to 148. There's been a noticeable uptick in our positivity rate. More than 4% of Colorado's COVID-19 tests came back positive yesterday. 7-day moving average on positivity has gone from the mid-2% range to the mid-3% range in about a week and a half. Want to keep it below 5%. So you got cases up, hospitalizations up, positivity up. So keep making good choices, and let's hope that we can avoid a third wave of the virus. All right, are you ready for the best part of the week? This is where we all come together, $5 at a time, and we change Colorado for the better. Your micro-giving campaign, Word of Thanks, has raised $730,000 for nonprofits in every corner of our state. And we are headed outside the Front Range this week to a place where the need is great, and so are the efforts to make sure that people have enough food to eat. The word of thanks that comes to mind when I think about the food bank network of the San Luis Valley is reach. They reach Coloradans in a persistently poor part of our state, where the people work hard, yet they still have a tough time getting by. They have 15 food banks spread out over rural country the size of Massachusetts. Now let me talk about the need. They serve 1 in 4 residents each year in the San Luis Valley. They're not counting people twice. You heard that right. 1 in 4 people in the San Luis Valley go to these food banks to feed their families. The food bank network of the San Luis Valley has a single paid employee. All the rest of that they do with volunteers and donated spaces. 15 locations spread out across the valley so that people don't have to drive 50 miles to get fresh food for their families. Those food banks are run by La Puente. It's an established nonprofit in the San Luis Valley. Their director told me that they often feel isolated from the Front Range, isolated from the benefits of Colorado's usually strong economy, isolated from the help that we provide each other here around the metro area. Well, this week, I know that help is going to come in from across Colorado for La Puente and for the food bank network of the San Luis Valley. If you text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, I'll send you the link to donate. Same numbers every week, same numbers as every week. If you're in for $5, I'll match the first 50 of those $5 donations. They may be geographically isolated and economically challenged, but they are our neighbors in Colorado, and together we can fill every one of those 15 food banks in the San Luis Valley. Thank you. I seem to recall that the first cut is the deepest, and it's the dumbest when somebody's slicing into an aspen tree. we look at the centuries worth of damage that results. And as the pandemic hit, anxiety and depression arrived. Evan Gill needed an escape. He found it in the high country. He now thinks he might set a record and is inviting other black Coloradans to follow him. Next. I may make a recommendation, tell you about something that is not ours but is interesting and worth your time. It'll come to me eventually, now I know. I was hiking over the weekend, came across aspen after aspen attacked by an invasive species, humans in particular. Beautiful trees, knifed up just so that Joe could tell Sarah that he loved her enough to deface nature with their names. Seth Boster, who's a features writer at the Colorado Springs Gazette, has a recent article about the centuries worth of damage that can be done to an aspen tree when somebody decides to carve it up. The article talks about the fragility of Colorado's famous aspens and what happens long after one of those messages is carved. You can find a link to that article on the next Facebook page.
Some hazy sunshine to deal with on this Wednesday evening, but things starting to clear out just a bit. Air quality moderate, visibility good as we head toward tomorrow. So some nice good news for you. Tonight, temperatures falling into the 40s and 50s here in eastern Colorado with 40s up in the mountains. Tomorrow, the heat's on. Our current record 89, my forecast high 90 degrees. It's hot across the eastern plains with more 70s and 80s going up in the mountains. High pressure around, but as we head toward Friday, the winds really start to kick up, especially in northern Colorado. And that means high fire danger around here. We will stay dry, however, as we head toward the weekend. Brief little cool off. It'll feel a little bit more like fall as we head towards Sunday in the mid 70s. And then, Kyle, sweater weather as we head toward Tuesday and Wednesday next week.
If you are one of the lucky Coloradans who came here by choice, remember the first time you saw the mountains.
I saw the mountains and it was just amazing. I really couldn't take my eyes off of them. Wanted to get up there.
He had no idea he would find peace up there years later and a chance to do something that he hopes will inspire others. Next. Evan Gill hunted high and low for evidence that anyone had done what he wanted to do. Become the first African-American, far as he could tell, to summit all of Colorado's 14ers. It looked like he could be the first, so he started his mission in June, climbing mountain after mountain while the world below was dealing with the pandemic and racial injustice. He told us he fought off bouts of depression, anxiety, and PTSD. He allowed hiking to take his mind and his body elsewhere. We caught up with him today along his journey.
First time I seen the mountains literally on I-70 driving from Baltimore to here. Saw the mountains and it was just amazing. I really couldn't take my eyes off of them. Wanted to get up there. Name is Evan Gill from Baltimore, Maryland. Just moved here in Denver, Colorado area 2 years ago. Trying to become the first African American to summit all 58 14ers. My first 14er was actually Mount Elbert. Thought that was a challenge enough, but wanted to see more. I am an Army veteran, Army veteran for 6 years, so I've always been very active and willing to push my body. This is just a new task. What I want to preach and to influence other people in the colored community to actually get out, step outdoors, and to enjoy what is free right next to us. So I hope to inspire somebody to go for this goal as well. It's no reason why we can't. It's nothing special. It just takes guts and grit, basically, to get up there. This was my latest 14er, La Plata Peak. Here's me and my wife. Got 2 kids together. Couldn't do it without her. For every summit, I got my family supporting me, and I got Baltimore supporting me, honestly. I want to be the first one. If I'm not the first one, I want to be the one to help diversify the 14er community. It's no reason why, black people couldn't. We're in every other sport, but not this.
Evan shared his story with our photojournalist Brian Wendland. He's currently at 24 summits, and he plans to hit all 58 by the end of next year. So tonight, we, as in you and me, are helping the San Luis Valley tackle a persistent issue down there. Food insecurity, coupled with a rural area the size of Massachusetts. They need a lot of small food banks to reach that population. And we're going to fill them all up tonight, $5 at a time. Next. So almost 1 in 3 kids in the San Luis Valley in Colorado lives in poverty. 1 in 3. Their parents get help putting food on the dinner table thanks to the food bank network of the San Luis Valley. The need is so great that 1 in 4 people in the valley use that food bank system each year. The folks down there tell me they think that's about double the statewide average, 1 in 4. So let's see what we can do to fill up those 15 small food banks that are scattered around at various volunteer locations throughout the valley. If you text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, I'll send you the link to donate. It's that same number every week if you want to save it in your phone. As always, if you're good for $5, I'll match the first 50 of you who give. These food banks down there are run by a nonprofit, La Puente. It's an established group out of Alamosa, and they run lean. Again, 1 employee, so that the money can go into buying food for all of those families. I think we can send a pretty important message that the rest of Colorado cares about the San Luis Valley. A message tonight, KK writes, as someone who lives in Del Norte, I say thank you. We need it. Says, I am 1 in 4. D, just donated. No one should go hungry in 2020 America. Thanks for continuing to provide this service. Hey, all I do is flag causes. You guys provide the service because week after week you contribute to these wonderful nonprofits around Colorado. We're seriously going to hit $1 million. I mean, you guys are unbelievable. We're at $730,000 and change at this point. And another note, we're currently in the San Luis Valley on vacation. The need is real. Can't wait to donate on this one. Thanks again for all you do. We'll see you next time.